For Canelo, I think the next best one is David Morrell. You know, so that'll be a fight, and I feel like I could beat all of them, no problem. So we're gonna keep trying to push those fights.
Wow, you just heard it. David Benavidez listed all the fighters that he wants to fight, and he did include up-and-comer David Morrell Jr. This is the first time that I could recall him mentioning David Morrell Jr., but things just got more interesting. That's what I want to talk about in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Let's start things off proper. So that's an interview from Fight Hype, fighthype.com. Link is in the description. Make sure you guys check out the video for full context and full entirety. I will put a link in the description. They have an interview with David Benavidez, who has an upcoming fight. He's fighting a fellow David Lemieux, and that's coming up at the end of the month. So David Benavidez, quick before I get into the Morrell conversation, he looks lean. He looks like he's working, and he's had, the reason this is important is he's had issues with his weight before. He actually lost his title, WBC title, based on failure to make his weight. And this was during the pandemic, so you can't really fault him because they didn't have all the gym equipment, yada, yada, yada. And the pandemic was fresh. Equipment wasn't available. People were in the bubble, etc. But needless to say, he had a miscalculation, didn't make weight, so they ganked him, took his belt. That belt later fell into the hands of Canelo Alvarez because the WBC, aka We Back Canelo, they were willing to just throw that belt in when Canelo hand-selected Caleb Smith. As far as David Benavidez, David Morrell, if you follow my channel, you know I've been very high up on both of these guys. You know I've been telling you about David Morrell Jr. because I think I was probably one of the first people on YouTube with a major platform to talk about David Morrell Jr. because I was hearing a lot of things about him. And I've told you that David Morrell Jr. is, in my opinion, the goods. He could scrap. He's Cuban. He's cocky. He's like a mixture of a lot of the Cuban greats before him. He's a mixture of Rigondeaux, mixture of Erislandy Lara, mixture of Gamboa, in his prime, of course, not the Gamboa that just fought Pitbull Cruz and got ethered. He's a mixture of Luis King Kong Ortiz. He's like all these type of styles rolled in one. I think he could box probably more than he's shown. He's aggressive, right? He's an aggressive boxer puncher, and he's slick in there, drops his hands, things like that. In my opinion, in my honest ego assessment, David Benavidez, and although he only has like 7 fights, and David Morrell Jr., those are the best guys in the weight class, Canelo included. Because you look at Canelo, and with him officially losing to Bivol, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens next. We'll just put it that way. Canelo lost to Bivol. Not only did he lose bad, but he lost in a manner where he was exposed. Like, he didn't win more than 2-3 rounds. So that really is going to show where Canelo is, how hungry he is to be at the top. Because so far, Canelo has been able to, in my opinion, really exist off of past accomplishments, what he's already done. I fought Floyd, I fought Triple G. So people just kind of allow Canelo to move in a manner different than any other fighter and gave him a special hall pass, if you will, where he could pick his opponents, make the most money doing it. But now, when you lose and things aren't on the up and up, your true character will be tested. Seeing how Canelo lost to Bivol, now you have something to prove to your fans, to yourself, because it's not working out your way in your last fight. So, interesting times. I also believe that Canelo was pretty foolish moving up from 160 to 175 to fight Kovalev when there were still great fights at 160. And then he got to a point, which I easily predicted, Ego Stradamus strikes again, where he was going to say he couldn't make 160 to fight Charlo at 160 or fight Andrade at 160. So now he's kind of in no man's land, and his whole career above 160 was really rushed. He didn't really stay and, get the proper seasoning at 160. He fought Jacobs, you know, and he's like, nah, I'm moving up. He didn't really do a huge body of work at 160, right? So now he's at 168, 175. I don't know about 175. So Canelo's in between a rock and a hard spot because his mandatory should be David Morrell Jr. with the WBA, and his WBC mandatory is David Benavidez if he beats Lemieux in the eliminator, and Canelo's coming off a bad loss and complaining he's too small for 175. So what does he do? You know, as far as David Morrell, he recently did an interview and says that David Benavidez won't say my name, but he's saying he's being avoided. And then David Benavidez might have seen that because now he made it official in this Fight Hype video and called him out. So a lot of great action between Caleb Plant, Morrell, David Benavidez, Canelo, you know, some interesting shifts at super middleweight. Anthony Durrell's still in that mix. So you got Anthony Durrell and Caleb. Very interesting times at super middleweight. And Benavidez and Morrell are young and possibly perceived as the top two guys. So I can't wait to see if they fight. And I will definitely support that fight because, you know, it's a classic. Cuba versus Mexico, Ecuadorian guy in Benavidez. You know, Benavidez has been out a bit longer, so he has had the bigger fights like Anthony Durrell, and he's about to fight Lemieux, as opposed to Morrell, who's looking spicy. So now that Benavidez made it official, you let me know in the comment section. And I'm out. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.